Video, that's what I was looking for. Video. So we're live, I think. That was an unusual intro. A little bit different than things we've seen before, maybe. Well, Brendan, what's going on up in the north of Bogota?
All above board, at least, anyway, that intro. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what image was going to flash up next on the screen. All is pretty fine here. I thought, Ali, though, you might be coming to us underwater. It seems that a few areas of the city, and especially down that side, have been inundated a little bit, have they?
I haven't seen too much, I'll be honest, and we get a hell of a lot of rain because we're at kind of the foot of the mountain, really, here. No, it's mainly up sort of more towards you, I think. I saw a horrible picture of Avenida Chile with NQS. Oh, absolute lake. I mean, a lake, like, impassable to traffic.
It is the season, though. It never ceases to amaze me how people are surprised. We get this every November, but obviously we're going to be talking about a little bit of that a little bit later on. But coming up on what is Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show, with another VAT-free day this Saturday, plus Black Friday and similar discount days on the way ahead of Christmas, we're going to discuss shopping in Colombia. Is it true that if you want quality products here, you have to pay more than you would in the likes of the US or Europe? Or is it a shopper's paradise if you know where to look? What are your experiences with shopping here, from clothes to computers, furniture, and Ollie knows a thing or two about that, to food? Send us your Colombian shopping stories, be they positive or negative. You can write to us right now using the live comment facility, or if you're watching this recorded, you can send a message via the medium on which you're viewing us, or simply send a tweet to @BogotaPost. We do love to hear from you. Interacting with you is all what this show is about. But first up, it's our news review. And after two heavy defeats for La Selección in this latest international window, it appears Colombia's Football Federation has wasted little time in relieving coach Carlos Queiroz of his duties. But we'll discuss that shortly. But first, Hurricane Iota brought devastation to the islands of San Andrés and Providencia earlier in the week. The latter, Ollie, was particularly badly hit due to its more rudimentary infrastructure, I'd imagine. The cleanup is underway, but what kind of a scar is this going to leave on the archipelago?
Well, I mean, we've said in the Bogotá Post, that there's been 98% of infrastructure in Providencia damaged. Now, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, that I don't really know what 98% of infrastructure damaged means. That's what Techo told us, and they're a very highly respected NGO. But I mean, I think what's obvious is that basically everything's been smashed to pieces. Not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, I think what we're talking about in San Andrés is problematic. Very, very problematic, real humanitarian crisis. What we're talking about in Providencia seems to be utter devastation.
Yeah, and Ollie, I've been to San Andrés, and probably a lot of people listening have been to San Andrés over the last few years, thanks to the arrival of Viva Air. It's now cheaper to get there. But maybe fewer people have been to Providencia. You were there, though. So can you give us an idea of what it's like, though, and the challenges that they might face now in trying to rebuild?
Yeah, so San Andrés has got lots of big, tall buildings. I mean, we're not talking about skyscrapers like in Bogotá, maybe, but you've got those big hotels that are very solidly made, blah, blah, blah. In Providencia, there's barely a building over 4 stories. And it really is, I mean, Providencia is much more than San Andrés. It really is a small tropical island. It's not, it's not particularly well developed. very, very poor sort of facilities when we're talking about things like hospitals and schooling. So, yeah, I mean, the legacy of this is going to be tremendous. We're not just talking about rebuilding people's houses. Of course, that's the priority. But then after that, there's going to be so much work to do to rebuild businesses, people's livelihoods, hotels, hospitals, schools, so much to be done. And we're talking about an area of Colombia that, especially when we talk about Providencia as opposed to San Andres, really doesn't receive very much government aid at all.
Yeah, and of course, Oli, people often lump them together, but there's a fair bit of a distance between them. You wouldn't swim it anyway from San Andres to Providencia.
No, you wouldn't want to walk it, as we often say, even if you were Jesus. It's a long old distance. It's not straight across the road. And I think part of it is that Providencia is not well developed. I think actually that the hurricane's path just came closer to Providencia. I don't think it's necessarily entirely because of the development.
Yeah, and the thing is, of course, this was a Category 5 hurricane, which is unusual for that area. Exactly. I think this was a record wind speeds and a record hurricane for that area. Mm-hmm.
First time Colombia's ever seen a level 5 hurricane, yeah.
And I saw as well the EDM here, the Meteorological Society or organization, whatever you want to call them, saying that be prepared for more of these to come, or at least other severe weather events. Because of course, while obviously the focus, and rightly so, is on Providencia and San Andres, but the coastal cities in the Caribbean here, Cartagena, Santa Marta, Barranquilla as well, I think, also got affected due to this, or the tidal waves or whatever. So it's had a big influence.
Well, people, I think, don't realize just how big hurricanes are and just how much of an effect they have. I mean, obviously you see in Providencia the damage, but think about this. I mean, we're experiencing sort of, hurricane hangover here in Bogotá. That's why we've had this weather over the last few days. That's connected to it. And if you think about how far, we're 1,000 miles from the coast, let alone pushing on to San Andres and Providencia. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of just how powerful these storms are. Now, if you imagine that you're talking about something that can affect the weather here, 1,000 kilometers away, what on earth do you think the impact is like actually up there on the Caribbean coast? Of course, it's dreadful. And we've seen these really poor barrios in Cartagena, which let's not beat around the bush here, Brendan. Cartagena is a place of unbelievable luxury at Boca Grande. And the absolute opposite, when we talk about inequality in Colombia, Cartagena is appallingly bad. You don't have to scratch very far behind the surface, away from those beautiful second homes from rich Andino investors. You don't have to go very far, and you're really in absolute poverty. And flooding one of those barrios, let's not kid ourselves. There's no government help coming. There'll be nice words now, and there'll be, Duque's doing his little photo shoot, kind of emergency cosplay where he gets to put on a little hat and all that kind of thing, and piss around like he's doing something for the people of the islands. But let's be honest, there's no help coming, not for Cartagena and not for the islands. There may well be private donations, and we'll talk about that, I hope, a little bit later. But in terms of government help, there's nothing coming. And, look, it would be a tragedy if a hurricane hit my house, but I could rebuild fairly fast. I've got the luxury of insurance and things like this. We're talking about families here that have nothing like that, absolutely nothing. And, it's lives that need to be rebuilt, Brendan, and they won't be rebuilt for years, put simply. Or maybe never, to be honest.
It's a fair point, Ali. And of course, there's an added element to developments in San Andres and Providencia, that you do have the Rizal group that maybe always look a little bit suspiciously on the mainland and the government from there, that do they have their best interests at heart? So this is really going to test it. And you're on about, will there be government money available? I saw a telling tweet, or it was on Instagram, wherever I saw it, but saying how when Avianca was in trouble, the government didn't delay in offering $370 million to help them. Now, in the end, Avianca didn't take that money. And I joked last week, well, that will mean there should be more money available for causes here in Colombia. But of course, it's all, as you said, about donations. And is the government going to make any kind of special fund available? I would say probably
Well,
not.
I mean, that money for Avianca, as I understand it, was more of an underwriting, really, but still, I mean, look, yeah, I mean, we're in a really difficult position here, Brendan. Money needs to be spent to get over the problems caused by the COVID panic. Now, that money has to come from somewhere, and it has to go somewhere. And let's not kid ourselves, corruption is going to be a huge element of that. And you really have to ask yourself, where is that money best spent? Should it be spent subsidizing students in richer cities, let's say, with big universities? That's not a bad way to spend it. Should it be spent on hurricane relief in San Andrés and Providencia? That certainly seems like a good way to spend it. Should it be spent on very poor communities in the Valle, the indigenous communities that were protesting last month? There's a long list of people that could do with a lot of help in Bogotá, in Colombia right now. And I think, where is that money going to go? And that's what made things like Avianca such a controversial. I mean, financially, it was a great deal for the government, and it sort of almost has turned out that way. But in terms of sort of how it looks, how it plays to the public, who do you help first? And one has to wonder, Brendan, will it be the people where you think you will get votes?
Well, as ever, the cynic perhaps there, Ollie, but there's a bit to that, I would say. The other thing with Cartagena, Santa Marta, the Caribbean coast, and even more so for San Andrés and Providencia, is that they're heavily reliant on tourism. And obviously with the pandemic, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I know across the board, obviously tourism is down. So it's probably badly hit San Andrés and Providencia and hit them more so than mainland Colombia. So they're suffering already, and then there's this. Now, I've read reports that San Andrés should be able to recover relatively quickly, but Providencia as a tourism destination for the next few months is probably off the charts. But I think, and I've seen some groups of foreigners on Facebook, people looking to see could they even go there to help out with the rebuilding effort and donate it. And I know in the Bogotá Post you did write a story about how people can at least donate money, but there might even be
no. Well, hang on. Let's clear up this. Not just money, but things as well. So they're looking for food, they're looking for building, construction materials, things like that as well. Do remember, of course, there is always a bit of a paranoia in Colombia. We've always got that thing on our head. Where is my money going? If you donate clothes, if you donate, let's say, bags of cement, bags of sand, etc., that you can more or less be guaranteed that that's not going to be affected by corruption. Not that we think these things will be anyway, but that does make some people feel maybe a little bit happier.
Okay, and guys watching, just let us know if you're interested in donating. Have you donated, or are you skeptical about donating money or even goods? Do you trust entities in this country that they will deliver what you donate to where it is needed most? But Oli, have you the details then in terms of, are there drop-off centers here in Bogotá, or what's the story?
Yes, there are, and I would advise you to go to the Bogotá Post website. We've got an article up there. It's on the front page of the website. It's very easy to find. You'll also see all around Facebook, there's a set of kind of 6 images that give drop-off points not only in Bogotá but around Colombia. For example, the nearest one to me is a lady called Camila Rivera on Calle 34 with 20, something like that. And then there's a couple more in the north, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the reaction as well, because, of course, when you're in a pandemic and people are feeling that that their own income and their own way of life has been badly affected? Are they as generous as maybe when things are going okay? But hopefully that's not the case, because obviously we're talking about people. Mm-hmm.
No, but that's a really, I mean, you make an absolutely, a really good point there that, yeah, of course, a lot of people in Colombia aren't in the same position to help actually as they would have been a year ago.
Yeah, that is true. Well, look, Oli, we leave it there. And as I said, people, if you do want to get in touch with us, let us know. Have you donated, or do you know of other ways as well that people can help? Do let us know. And our main topic in the second half of the show, our lighter topic, we are going to be talking about shopping in Colombia. You can see in the ticker tape at the bottom here. What are your shopping experiences here from everything? It's not just in relation to food, but furniture. Oli has a lot of experience with that of late, and other hardware products. We'll be talking about all of that just, I guess, about after 9:30. Do get in touch with us. But usually we leave sport until last in our news roundup, but it's been a big day. Now, I have to say, officially, the Federación de Fútbol here in Colombia haven't confirmed, I believe, not in the last I checked, that Queiroz has been relieved of his duties. It's a bit like people are calling Joe Biden the president-elect. Well, he's not officially the president-elect until the Electoral College meets and say that he is the president-elect, so he's not there yet. But by all accounts, and in fairness, I was talking to one of his backroom team earlier today, a paisano of mine, an Irishman, and yeah, it's pretty much ciao ciao.
A member of Queiroz's backroom team, not Biden.
Oh yes, Queiroz, of course, not Biden's. That's tomorrow. I'm talking to Biden, the good Irish Catholic that he is. But were you surprised with this? Obviously, shocking results in this international window, losing 3-0 to Uruguay and then 6-1 to the neighbours in Quito. But was it a knee-jerk reaction to get rid of Queiroz? Only 4 games into an 18-game campaign?
Well, it's not ideal, is it? I mean, you do want. I mean, modern football is pretty, crazy, frankly. We see all kinds of ridiculous moves in club football. It's a little bit more unusual, I think, in international football. It does seem a bit harsh on Carlos Queiroz. I mean, you're looking at player errors, especially in the Uruguay game, and against Ecuador, they just look dreadful, I think. I think that...
yeah, I'm just laughing. Your number one fan is just written in there. Hello. I obviously don't exist in this show.
I can't explain it. I really can't explain it. So anyway, what was I? So
you were
yes,
talking about the errors in the Uruguay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit unfortunate. I mean, is it his fault? Is it the players' fault? I think you have to be sitting here and asking. And, you've got established players making monumental cock-ups against Uruguay and not in a great situation. Ecuador just seemed like a giant bowl of nothing. But, I mean, I think, look, Uruguay are a handy team. I don't think there's any shame in losing to Uruguay. We're talking about established professionals. We're talking about players, playing at the top level in Europe, etc. So that's, it's a very understandable result. Okay, it's at home, but okay, it happens. And okay, 3-0, but there's a couple of mistakes. Okay, fine. But 6-1 to Ecuador. I mean, Ecuador are handy. Losing in Quito. It's not the end of the world. People, teams will go to Quito and lose. I mean, that's, again, they're a decent enough football team, and it's high altitude, which doesn't make life easy, and blah, blah, blah. But 6-1, that's a difficult one.
Yeah, of course. It's the manner of the defeat, and especially that one in Ecuador. But Uruguay at home as well, 3-0, and the errors, it's just all kind of compounded. And then
another way to say it is, I mean, look, he only beat Venezuela in 4 matches, who were rotten. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Venezuela looked like a pub team in that match.
Yeah, it's true. Although on the other side, the member of the backroom team that I was talking to earlier today, he wasn't available for the last 2 games. So he said during his tenure, he never lost a game with Colombia. So that's what he's going to take from it. But I was going to say this was all compounded by rumors, at least, and James come out today with a statement from the cold of Merseyside, saying that all these stories were untrue about bust-ups in the dressing room and stuff like that, and that they're all on the one road and still fighting for their dream to get to Qatar. But of course, that's just added to it. So I guess the Federación were thinking, there's already negativity out there, rumors of these bust-ups. Are the players playing for Queiroz? The easiest solution is to get rid of them. But talking about money in Colombia being in short supply like it is all over the world, it looks like it's going to cost him 2 million just for Queiroz. Plus, I'm guessing he has at least half a dozen on his backroom team that came with him. Let's say conservatively they're on 100,000 each a year. They'll all have to be paid off. This could end up costing.
Yeah, that's. I mean, 100,000 a year. I mean, is your man on 100,000 a year?
It's football, Oli.
Who paid for the last round of drinks when you were out with him? Look, I think. I genuinely don't know. That's not an insider comment. But look. I mean, yes, the Premier League is full of money. You know, Serie A to a degree is, you know, maybe the Milans and the Internazionales of this world. Real Madrid, Barcelona, sure. Football as a whole is not massively inundated with cash necessarily. I mean, look, I'm sure they won't be low on money. But I think what we need to remember here, really, Brendan, is it's a lot cheaper, I think, and a lot easier for the people in power to get rid of Queiroz than get rid of the organisers of the Federación de Fútbol Colombiano. That I think is the point that's going to be important.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair point. Now, in terms of a replacement, as I said, you know, maybe there'll be an 11th hour turnaround here, and Queiroz will stay on, but that's highly unlikely at this stage. A replacement, Peckerman's name is coming back. Is that like, you know, there's an old saying, you should never go back?
Yeah, no. There's a reason Peckerman's time came to an end. And to be honest, at the end of his tenure, he was out of ideas. They were playing pedestrian defensive football. Look, I think Peckerman was great at his time, but, you know, it's not the time for a Peckerman anymore.
Where's this Osorio? Is he out of a job right now, or is he in contract somewhere?
Osorio? I'm not quite sure. We need to get in touch with Frake about this, I think.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, we'll see. I guess next week we'll probably know a little bit more. Just to wrap this up on the football chat, and of course, people, let us know. Are you in agreement that Queiroz, it was right to get rid of him, and that Colombia needed a change at the head of things? Yeah, again, do let us know. But I was just going to say the positive, if we call it a positive, is that they've plenty of time now. Their next game, and it's a handy one, Brazil, is in March. So
nice, easy match. Yeah, very winnable.
Yeah, easy one to start off with for whoever takes up. No, but in fairness, there is that time. So players will be back at their clubs over the busy Christmas period into the new year. Plenty of time to forget about this. Like, it'd be different if they'd lost 6-1 to Ecuador and then had to play next week or in a few days' time. But now they've time to get over it. New year, maybe new optimism just in the world in general, because, you know, maybe vaccines are working and maybe there are a few fans back in the stadium, things like that. So
I'd say
there's still hope.
I'd say 6 to 1 and half of those to the other. I mean, James is starting to lose form a bit now, and, you know, Liverpool's not a nice city to play in, you know, November, December, January, February. Not to mention the fact all the lads playing in England, Jerry Mina, Davinson Sanchez, James Rodriguez, all of those guys, it's a rough, tough schedule coming up for them. You know, there's no winter break in the Premier League, and in fact, quite the opposite. There's more games to be played. Chances of injury, chances of burnout. Let's see.
Yeah, it's a fair point, of course. Yeah, James does seem to suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. So we'll see how he gets through the cold winter up on Merseyside. Now, Ollie, today we feared that there might be a lot of protests, and I was listening to the BBC World Service before we started our live program, and I was surprised to hear them mention one sentence news summary that there were protests in Colombia today, but by all accounts,
where?
Not much happened.
Where were these protests? I mean, I'm continually told, I mean, a student handed me a piece of work the other day saying, last year, there were 1 million and something people out on the streets. And I thought, really? No, well, I mean, the eye test tells me there were not 1 million people in the streets of Bogota. I've seen 1 million people in the streets in London against the Iraq war. It doesn't look anything like what it was last year. And yes, certainly, look, we're coming up to the anniversary of last year's protests, and that means we've got a couple of pretty grisly anniversaries coming up. So the big one is going to be on Saturday. And the idea was to have a little pre-protest, I think, today, because, of course, the original protest last year was on a Thursday. As far as I can see, nothing happened. I mean, I live just down from the Parque Nacional. It's a big gathering area. A few ESMAD. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it really seemed to be a washout, as I mentioned at the top of the show to you, that I thought you might be coming to us underwater or whatever. Maybe I should be coming to you from underwater from up this.
Oh, it was. I mean, fair play to anybody that was out. I mean, I think they did manage to close the Septima at one point because we had Transmillennials being diverted. But I mean, it was honking it down in the afternoon. But yeah, I didn't really see anything. And as you said. In the warm-up, there's been nothing on the television here. There's been nothing to say. I've seen no reports on Facebook or on Twitter really about demonstrations.
Yeah, you said in the warm-up, Ollie, in the green room, green room. I was saying that backstage before we came on. Yeah, but it's true. It seems to have passed off without much ado. But if people were out there and saw other things and saw something that we didn't, well, do let us know. Now, you mentioned, of course, Ollie, Saturday being the 21st of November and the anniversary of the big protest last year, but it is also our Dia Sin IVA, or VAT-free day. Cue pandemonium?
Yeah, look, it's going to... I mean, we've had chaos on the last couple of days. I mean, look, I think... I have mixed feelings. I don't think the Dia Sin IVA is a particularly good idea. It seems bonkers. I would also say that I don't particularly like IVA as a tax. I think Colombia manages it relatively well. It has a good sliding scale of IVAs. But it's just a stupidly regressive tax. I mean, it disproportionately affects the poor. I mean, it's just not... it's not fair or reasonable.
Well, of course, Ollie, it's understandable why you don't like it. It was the French who invented it. So
really, it doesn't surprise me. It's the kind of idea that you'd expect from them.
Yeah, well, it came in and just a brief background on the history of VAT, or kind of consumption taxes. It came in the First World War that both the French and the Germans brought in as a temporary measure. And then the French tried it again in... the Ivory Coast in 1954, and it worked stunningly for them. So they gave it a go in their own territory, or in their own land, in 1958, I believe. And then other countries thought, oh, this is a great way to go. Apparently, the French get 50% of their state revenue from VAT. So it's quite important. They're not going to be getting rid of it anytime soon. Because you did mention that Duque has at least mentioned the idea, mooted it, that he would like to get rid of IVA here.
Well, yeah, I mean, Duque is not... I mean, I'm not Duque's biggest fan by any means. I think...
Really? That's a surprise.
I think... Well, actually, it would be, because the fact that I support him in any way whatsoever means to many people I'm essentially just to the right of Mussolini. But yeah, I mean, look, Duque's got some good ideas. I mean, in the way that most people do, frankly. And, one of his good ideas is expanding Colombia's income tax base, which is critically important. I don't think that there are not many countries in the world that don't raise a large tax base from income tax, from a progressive income tax. Now, many of those countries also have fairly high VAT. That's not uncommon. But we're talking about rich countries here. But look, I mean, you can't. It's absolute madness to say that you're not going to bother putting income tax on such a large swathe of your population as we currently do. It's also, by the way, absolutely. Listen, at my university, we've got a lot of left-wing, mamerto types. And I can guarantee, Brendan, that when September rolls around, they all start moaning about having to pay tax. We're talking about people, some of the people I talk to, they're on very good wages. We're talking easily 10 times or 20 times the minimum wage. And they're complaining about paying 25% tax. Or less.
Yeah.
And I just think look, that kind of differential off the minimum wage, you're looking at some of your taxation will be in the 40% category in England. That's absolutely, yes, that's where Colombia should go. Absolutely. I should pay more tax than I do.
Yeah, and I agree. And broaden the base, bring a lot of people. Of course, Colombia has the problem of so many casual workers and workers that aren't on the system. What's the word I'm looking for? Informal. There you go. Informal workers. So that's another issue.
The grey market.
Yeah, the counter argument to your colleagues there might be that they will say they don't see any return on the taxes that they pay.
No, of course they don't, because they don't pay any. Look, you're never going to get any return on anything if there's no money there. Look, I mean, it's one of the most infuriating arguments I ever have. That I'll talk to somebody and say, "Oh yeah, but all that money will get robbed by corrupt politicians." You go, well, but it won't all get robbed, will it? I mean, they do still build roads here. They do still build hospitals, things like that. And what you tend to see in Chile is a really sterling example of this in Latin America. That in Chile, the police are horrible, repressive, authoritarian people, but they're not corrupt. And the reason they're not corrupt is because they're paid well. They're corrupt in terms of covering up abuse, policial abuse, when a couple of them get a little bit violence happy and, take the eyes of a young Santiago kid. Yeah, okay. But they're not corrupt in terms of asking for bribes and stuff because they don't need to, because they're paid well. But it's other things, Brendan. I mean, look, why do we pay out a lot of money in social services in England and in Ireland? Well, part of it is because we want people to have a bit of basic money so that they don't walk around causing trouble all over the city, which Colombia absolutely has. Why do people crap in the street here? Because there aren't publicly funded public toilets. I mean, that's the simple fact of it. There are people without houses that need to go to the toilet somewhere without being too crude. And if you don't provide them with the facilities, they have to go somewhere. If you say to somebody, you've got no money, well, they're going to go and take that money at the end of a machete if they need to. If you don't say, here is some money, get yourself up on your feet, not to mention the sheer humanity of it. Who on earth is looking at the poorest among us in society and going, oh yeah, no, I actually don't give a shit about them. I'll just build a bigger wall around my conjunto.
Well, it happens. Yeah, I mean, it could come back to this root of it being a very individualistic society in that regard. What I have, I hold, and I won't give an inch. Actually, in an earlier podcast on my Wrong Ways Colombia Cast podcast, I chatted with the Los Andes economist Leopoldo Ferguson, and he has some what I think are some very reasonable ideas of how you can, number one, broaden that tax base and then improve the public education so that those who do send their children to private schools at least feel that they're getting something out of the public education as well. We touched on a lot of areas, but it was very, very interesting. But yeah, there are plenty of solutions here, but it's that kind of argument that you say that people are going, well, I get nothing for it, so it's better the way it is, and I'll keep on going.
Yeah, and by the way, let's be quite clear about this. The people that make that argument, are they giving lots of money to charity? Are they? Bullshit. they're usually the same people that go, "Oh no, I don't give money to beggars in the street." And you go, "Well, okay, fine, but do you give your money to a charity?" "Oh, well, it's different, isn't it?" Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe they donate that little bit to the Éxito Foundation when there's like 150 pesos left over, and they'll ask you at the cash register, "Do you mind donating that 150 pesos?" So I'm sure they feel good about that, wherever that money goes to. And that's probably a nice little segue talking about Éxito. We are going to go on with our main topic here, shopping in Colombia, because we do have the Dias in IVA on Saturday. So you might be able to get a nice few little discounts, or shops have probably just upped their prices in the week leading up to it, and you'll think you're getting a discount. But of course, Black Fridays, all these things, there are a lot of offers on as we run up in the lead up to Christmas. So, Oli, shopping here, in some ways, it's like a throwback to the old days in Northern Europe, at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, I think a lot of my life in England, in Colombia and Bogota, one of the things I really like about it is that it feels like my childhood in England in many ways. I mean, look, we've still got high streets, Brendan. You know, I live right on a high street. There's a high street right down there. There's like local shops and everything that people actually go to, and they know your name. And they say hello to you, and you have a little chat about the weather. I mean, which actually irritates me slightly, so that's one of the reasons I don't go in there. But other people like it. Other people like it, and it's good for them, and I want them to be happy. I really like it. There's lots of independent stores. There's a heavy focus on physical buying, so it's not all domicilios, and I mean, it might be in certain sort of conjunto heavy areas, but for the most part, Bogota works on cash and certainly on personal service, and I think that's brilliant. It's a really nice. It's something I miss when I go back to England. I immediately think, oh, you know, it's sad. This used to be a thriving high street. There used to be a small independent shop here, and now there's not.
This is just coming to my head. I know, slightly off topic, but talking about like the high street and its extinction almost in most of England and I would say Ireland as well, and in other richer nations. But maybe with the pandemic, the smaller towns might thrive again as people get out of the city. So we might see that coming back. And Colombia has the blueprint here now in Bogota, because we spoke before in earlier episodes, I say this, that like every barrio here in itself is a small little self-contained village or town. It's got everything you need. You don't really
Very
need...
interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, I don't know, have you seen the Paris plan that's come out? They want Paris to become a 15-minute city. So the idea is that wherever you live, you're always within 15 minutes walk or cycle ride of all the things you need, you know, in your basic daily life. I mean, not everything in your life. Obviously, you can't have concert centres, you know, next to everybody. But
I want Madonna playing on my...
Yeah. I wonder what... Yeah, she has to come and play at the back room in the Pig and Firkin. Yeah, no. But in terms of sort of basic essentials, they're saying, yeah, look, we want everybody to be within 15 minutes. Which, to be fair, you wouldn't have had to talk about when I was young in England, because you always would have been within 15 minutes of everything. And in Bogota, in many ways, yeah, you still are. You know, there's a drugstore at the end of my road. You know, I can buy wheelchairs next door. Maybe that's not a daily need, admittedly.
I hope not.
But yeah, I mean, I've got supermarkets, you know, 5 minutes walk. I've got shops, you know, everything, pretty much everything. I mean, there's an optician on the corner. I can't think of many things, to be honest, that I have to go without, you know, unless we're talking about really quite specialist things. Pretty much everything's within a quarter of an hour walk from me. And a 45-minute stretch the legs with the dogs, almost everything I can think of, I can get to.
Yeah, okay, you might say that you're closer to the action, the historic centre and the CBD, as they would say in Australia, the business centre. But even for me here, well, I was going to say, but just even for me, way up north. Sorry?
What shopping am I doing in the historic centre of Bogota? To buy a llama?
Yeah, well, if you want to. There is an Olympica, as far as I can recall. But no, I was going to say, but for me, on the northern limits, but even here, like I have everything I need within that 15 to 20-minute walk, really. So yeah, it's all self-contained. Again, as you said, maybe specialist stuff, but like in the last few months during this pandemic, I've had no real need outside of regular visits to Migración, but that's another story. But yeah, I've had no real need to go further south or get out of the city for any essentials. But in terms of like markets, then, like we don't exactly have the wet markets that they have infamously in China, but we've similar things. There's of course the famous one that most foreigners will know of as Palikimau, but it's a bit once it gets mentioned in Lonely Planet, that really ruins it as far as I'm concerned.
I think Palikimau is a little bit overhyped. I mean, for a start, it's a rich man's Corabastos. But actually, what I would really say about Palikimau is, I hear a lot of people that say, I go there to get my vegetables, and I think, really? I mean, how often do you buy vegetables? Like, are you buying vegetables once every 2 weeks? Because to be honest, once I've got out to Palikimau, it's a pain in the ass to get to. I'm losing money on taxis or transport, or losing time on transport. And, I'm only going to have to buy more vegetables within about 3 or 4 days anyway, because I've either eaten them all or they've gone off. So, I'm not going there every 4 days. That's mental.
Well, when I lived in the centre, I actually used to walk. Now, a lot of people wouldn't recommend walking. You kind of
straight down the Tracy. Nice, yeah.
Well, I used to go straight down the 19. Straight down the 19. Yeah. But the one thing that annoys me in these markets, Ollie, the lack of prices displayed. Because I always think, here we go. They're going to like, okay, this papaya, it should be 1,000 pesos la libra, but hey, it's this mono. We'll charge them 3,000 the libra. Display the prices, guys.
No, yeah, I mean that's something that people often complain about, all over Bogota. I would say Bogota's got markedly better since I've been here. It was fairly common even in big-ish local tiendas not to have prices. I'd say almost. I genuinely, I don't know. The barrio you live in is very different to where I live. Round here, I would expect prices to be in every single tienda. Every single one.
Yeah, here now, definitely. There's the odd few that don't, perhaps. But like where I do my fruit and veg shopping now, the prices are always displayed. But, but in those markets, because they do have the farmers markets. And there's one that every Friday, actually tomorrow morning now, on my way when I go to my office in Barrio Nueva Zelandia, I pass by it. But again, there's no prices displayed there. It's just guesswork, really. As far as
there's one just up the road from me, like literally the little parquecito where I take my dogs every morning and an evening. But I went there. I thought, okay, this is great. I've got a little farmers market on my doorstep and blah blah. And to be honest, it was just an unpleasant experience. I passed in. I don't get any selection over my fruit and vegetables. For example, I want some carrots for eating raw, and I want some carrots for chopping up and cooking. So I want some fat and chunky, and I want some long and thin. And of course, I feel like a bit of a Burke talking to the guy at the thing. Can you give me like 4 long, thin ones? Now, look, I know a lot of Colombians don't have any compunction at all. They'll be like, that's fine, just tell him what you want. But I just feel embarrassed. I feel like a whiny kid if I'm asking for what I want. I don't feel I deserve to have nice things. So I feel like I should get what I'm given. So, I don't feel like I can ask him. But again, it's what you come back to, like asking for prices. And also those tiendas, those little tiendas where everything's locked off, I can't be having with that, Brendan. I just can't be having with it. If I have to go in somewhere, can I have one of those, please? Can I have one of those? Can I have one of these as well? Oh, I'd like one of those. I just feel like a little child, I feel like my autonomy is being, I want to pick things up myself, do my own. I feel guilty putting them out to go and run and get me all these things. I feel like, you're putting in work that you shouldn't really have to do.
Well, actually, you just remind me when I was in Santiago, living in Santiago de Chile, and because I never really experienced that here, but going into a drugstore and I had to buy something, and it was a 3-person process. You asked one person, he got it for you. Then he handed it to somebody else. I forget what that middle person did. And then the final step was that you went to a cash register and paid for it. It was the most ridiculous and long-winded, convoluted thing that I ever went through.
Well, have you been to Colombia's working class classic, the Easy stores?
Oh, Easy or only? No,
only. So only.
Yeah,
right?
only,
Easy
yeah.
is
Easy is another supermarket. Yeah, the only store I have. Don't you know? Well, I have Mr. Ticanio Corrigan here. I think I still have a few shirts that I bought there about 7 years ago. I haven't been to one in a while.
I believe I'm wearing only underwear right now. Yeah, no, classic stuff. But no, look, I'm a massive fan of Only, but my God, is that a ritual? But again, I mean, the thing about this is Only is such a ritual of shopping that it comes to the point where I enjoy it. It's part of the experience, the whole ridiculousness of it is fun. It's kind of so archaic. It's when it's half archaic that it bothers me.
Okay.
And there's an interesting one here.
Well, yeah. Before you get to Paula and her comment, and cheers, Paula, for that comment. But I just want to say, because on that kind of similar theme, clothes stores, because I would like to hear from people like where they think the best place to get clothes, because clothes and especially shoes for me is an issue here. I never feel comfortable. But one place that I like to get jeans, at least, is a place called I'm saying Falcao. Is that the name of it? Now I'm thinking of the player, but it's something like that. So like Fashion Colombia, Facol, yeah, and I like their jeans there. I find them comfortable, nice sizes, because I always struggle to get decent jeans in this country too. But Paula's comment, because this is another very popular one, probably mentioned in Lonely Planet as well.
Yeah, sorry, no, I thought you were going to read it out.
I'm going to let you do it.
So the Mercado de Pulgas. Now, I mean, I don't think anybody that knew me would have said, "Have you gone to the Mercado de las Pulgas?" Yes, I have, and I like it very much. And it's one of the things I really, really love about Colombia is that actually, you can pick up kind of old stuff. Now, hand on my heart here, is sitting here using the computer and stuff, but I really like old things. I don't like old people, but I do like old things. And so, I mean, I'm looking over here at a load of furniture that I've bought recently from secondhand furniture shops, and it's absolutely brilliant. It looks like, I'm sitting here looking at these chairs and thinking, my God, it looks like I've ripped off an old church. It's wonderful. Great Gothic, sort of velveteen, carved wood. Oh, fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic. And it's a bit of, in Colombia you can buy old gramophones and stuff like this, and usually relatively cheap. Buying an old gramophone in England now, hundreds of pounds, let's say.
Yeah. Well, Paula, to answer your question, I have been there, but it's years, because when I lived in the center, I used to walk by there quite regularly when I'd be on my way to La Perseverancia to have a coffee. And maybe something stronger, but I love that there are all this old stuff. And Ollie, you probably find this amusing, but I remember back in the day, before my adolescent years, but like in my parents' house, we'd have all these old vases and different things, and I used to kind of pretend that I was saying mass in the good Catholic style. So have all the different things to raise up. So.
Oh right, like the little the incense and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I know the the golden cups or what's the word I'm looking for that you call them? But yeah,
I will say goblets, kind of. I would say, Brendan. I do sometimes think if I had been born in a Catholic country, I might have got into religion just for the aesthetics. I mean, Protestantism, it's not much fun. It's not much. You go into Protestantism, it's just sitting around in a freezing church in sub-zero temperature, listening to hypocrisy. But at least with the Catholics, you get all incense and that.
Yeah, well, the Church of England isn't too bad, but if you're Presbyterian, forget about it. That's...
Well, we're very much Methodist and Presbyterian in our, certainly my mum's side. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I was going to say the Church of England is Catholic life in many ways. But anyway.
Oh yeah, the high church stuff. Yeah, they kind of sort of pouncing about.
One of the things about the markets as well, without displaying prices, but of course it does give you the option, maybe less so in fruit and veg places, but in places where you're going to buy clothes or other sort of products like that, you can haggle. Some people hate that. Other people are a dab hand of it. What do you make of it?
I think people that don't like haggling are people that probably shouldn't be shopping. I think fundamentally is what I always think. So look. I'll give you an example. Actually, fairly recently, I was picking up a couple of cabinets for the bedroom, and which is almost finished, by the way. Next podcast, I will definitely have my house fully firing, and I'll be mentally a little bit better than I am now. Anyway, I was in there, and your lady there, she's got a bronze telescope. And I see my bronze telescope. Does this work? Yeah, it works. Give it a go. It works. Now I'm immediately thinking into my head, not how much is a bronze telescope worth, because I don't really care how much a bronze telescope is worth to other people. What I care about is how much will I pay for a bronze telescope. That's what's immediately in my head, and then I'm listening to her number, and that's I think that's the thing. If you've got the value of something in your head, then I don't think you should be afraid of haggling, because haggling becomes a really simple thing. You just say, well, this is the monetary value I think this thing is worth. If I can obtain it for that price, I've got a deal. If I can't, then I've got a problem. Now, once I was getting a suit out of a second-hand place in Chapinero, and I said to the woman, what's the price on this suit? Thinking she would say, 100,000 or say 80 or 100,000, because it was a nice suit, really nice suit, and she says 50,000, and just as a reflex, I immediately went 40. And she's like, all right, and I was like, and then of course the speed at which she said it, I immediately became very paranoid and started, double checking all the stitching and all that. But yeah, absolutely berserk.
Yeah, but of course. The idea of rich Westerners haggling here is unsettling for some other farmers, because you're trying to rip off these poor Colombians in haggling. But
I'll be honest. Look, you're in Cartagena, and there's a guy selling coconuts. One of the drink the coconut, out of the little straw in, drink the coconut juice, and. Look, those coconuts are probably 2,000, but in the center of Cartagena, they're 4,000. Now, you can work yourself up into a frenzy on a crowded, dirty, smelly, fuming Cartagena street. You can spend 10 minutes if you want, saving yourself 2,000 pesos, fine. Or you can just have a bit of a laugh and go, I'll give you 3, that's what they're worth. Done.
Yeah, there's a time. I was going to say there's a time and a place for it, I guess, for the haggling. Because the other thing is there are certain things, like most Colombians would say, well, you'll never accept the first price that a Colombian will tell you for, again, maybe in those San Victorino markets, if you're buying a football shirt or whatever, they might go and try their arm. Oh, this is 50,000 when you could nearly buy the original for not much more than that. Anyway.
Somebody's not been in an Adidas shop for a while.
Yeah, I know they're a lot more. They're nearly 200,000 now, whatever. Yeah. But still, 50,000 for a Chiviada camiseta too much.
But also I would say it depends. Look, it depends on the quality, doesn't it? Look, I've bought a Colombia top for 10,000 pesos, and it says Abibas on the circle. And I don't have a problem with that shirt. It's a yellow shirt, and frankly, I'm not going to wear it very much because yellow doesn't go. I'm blonde and I'm light skinned.
But that's what all the influencers do, Ollie. You have to wear the shirt. At least try the blue one anyway, then. You have to
exactly. No, you see, when I came in for my red shirt, then I was saying, well, no, now I'm stepping up to the 30,000 bracket. I want a slightly better copy. And I do. There is a sliding scale of of copies that you can get, but again, I think it's this point, isn't it? Look, you can get really hung up on it, or you can think, was that a reasonable deal for me? Now, I'm not encouraging that anyone should disprove, should try to distort the market. And frankly, there are plenty of times in Colombia where you can, if you want, absolutely just bully and exploit somebody into selling what they're doing for much less than it's worth just to make the sale because they're desperate. But do you feel good about yourself going home when you've done that? Really? I mean, look, overpaying. Let's not be comical with this. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that you should pay 4 times the value of something, but should you think about kind of what the effect of what you do is? Yeah, absolutely, you should. And I think another point about this, Brendan, is that, look, you can get caught up in all these things, and you can kind of walk around just thinking, oh, everyone's out to get me and they're out to make a killing on me and all this kind of thing. But then your life's just not going to be very fun, is it? You're not going to have fun walking around constantly second guessing and thinking again. And you know what, Brendan? Everyone you meet in Colombia, and I will guarantee you this, it's absolute hog shit, and it doesn't matter who you talk to or what you do. I could say I got a bottle of whiskey off of a guy in the market, and it's proper, honest Scottish whiskey. And I got my mum, who lives in Scotland, to check it out. It's the real deal. And I can say I got that bottle of whiskey for 5,000 pesos. And I guarantee you, there are Colombians I know that will go, oh yeah, I could have got it for 1,000. Absolutely. Within a second, though, oh no, you got ripped off for being a foreigner. It doesn't matter what the deal is. There's always some Jimmy Five bollocks that will go, oh no, I could have got it for half the price. You're being ripped off, blah, blah. You should go to my guy. And what you generally tend to find is that's either terrible quality and you can see why it's so much cheaper, or it's just, oh yeah, well, my uncle knows a guy that he definitely met down in Tienda one night.
Yeah. Well, look, I guess if you don't like haggling and that kind of stuff, and then just go to this big supermarket chains like Éxito, Coruja, or Olímpica. Yeah, because we're up for time here, Ollie. We didn't even get to talk about your experience buying construction and or for the house, I should say. I'm just looking here as our producer is giving us 5 minutes if we need it, or will we wrap that up?
I don't know. Was he? I don't know if he's. Is that an extra 5 minutes?
I think so. I think he's giving us an extra 5 minutes.
Well let's wrap it up fairly quickly anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Paula's on to us again. Just thanks for writing in, Paula. It wouldn't be a Bogotá Nights without having some interaction from Paula. Do you haggle over the price on something in particular? I do it only with clothing and never with craft work. Clothing, yeah.
The thing is about craft work is they are Germans, and Germans are hard to haggle with. Do you see what I did there? Craft work.
Yeah, well done, Ollie. Yeah, he's here until Christmas, guys. We don't want to lose him. I would say, Paula, if I was getting things fixed, like my laptop or whatever, like I'd shop around at least, or if they say, oh, this is going to cost 50,000, I'd be going, can you do it for 40? Or I'd probably haggle on that, like, or I got runners, tennis and shoes repaired. I'd haggle on that price as well, like if I'm getting repairs, because I tend to find that they'll say a higher price at the start, and then you'll find they can do it.
So it's always a dangerous one, isn't it, when they go, That's too long. Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say actually the opposite of Paolo. I don't think I would ever haggle with clothing. I mean, almost always clothing's got a price on it, I think, in the places I go. Or
we're on about San Victorinos around there, down the centre.
I see what you mean. But yeah, to be honest, though, that's not the type. I tend to buy my clothing, to be honest, secondhand only. Like only for underwear, basically, which obviously you can't get secondhand. Secondhand for like shirts and the like. Secondhand or from small designers or artisanal stuff. And so I'm not haggling really with them.
Yeah. It's something I've got better at over the years, I have to say, because from traveling in Ireland, I would have never been comfortable with haggling. But certainly here and even traveling around Asia, I've become better at it anyway. Put it that way. But there's always that little doubt at times that I go, oh, did I pay too much for that? But as you said, Oli, you can overthink that, so it's better to let those things go. Once you've paid for something, and if you're happy enough with the price, then forget it.
Get away.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we will wrap this up. There is, I think, a show coming on afterwards. Anyway. Next week, Oli, kind of linked to these stalls that you get on the streets. Are they invading our public space?
Public space, yeah.
It's a bugbear of both of ours, and I'm sure lots of other people. A lot of the time, well, it's meant to be a shared space, but some people like to think it's their space only, and to hell with everybody else. That's what we're going to be talking about next week, guys. And, of course, our news roundup in what could be another eventful week. Let's see how we survive Dia Sin Eva on Saturday. Next week. Yeah. Okay. Ciao. Bye bye.